So, you know about gluing your models, you know about pinning your models, but what about magnets? Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, another back to basics video for you, and in this one we're going to cover magnetizing. Now, as always, this series is totally aimed for beginners, so it's going to have a lot of basic information, but I really hope it's useful to you. You won't actually physically see me magnetize anything in this video. It's more about talking about magnets and some of the tips and tricks that I've learnt over the years. I am going to put a link to my playlist where I've got all of my magnetizing tutorials in, so hopefully they're useful to you. If you want to see me actually magnetizing stuff, then go and check those out. Having said that, in a future Back to Basics video, I'm going to have a run through of basically me using all of the techniques that we've learnt so far and that we're going to learn in the future in one video where I'm going to actually physically build a Space Marine. And I'm going to include the magnetizing, the pinning, the green stuff, the gluing, you know, everything is going to be covered in that one video. So keep watching for that one. But in the meantime, let's have a look at magnets. Okay, so what is magnetizing all about? So we've covered obviously gluing your model together, we've covered pinning, but what if you want a connection that isn't too permanent, something which you can take on and off? Well, that's what magnetizing is all about, and the reasons that you would magnetize something are pretty much just two reasons. One is for storage, so you can take something apart and it's easier to store, and then the second reason is so you can have some different options, or maybe some different weapon options. So in front of you here I've got one of my Space Wolves, and he's currently with a plasma gun. And I can take that off. I've got a little magnet in there. I can take that off, and then I can replace that with a melter gun. Really, really useful. You never know what the future is going to hold for Games Workshop. You know, one minute, you know, plasma guns like all the rage, and then a new gun would come out, say a grab gun. And if you've magnetized yours, you know, it's easier to basically change the weapons. So that's what magnetization is all about. So let's have a quick chat about magnets. I'm going to bring in a selection of the magnets that I use. So first of all, where do I get my magnets from? So I get mine from a company called Guy's Magnets. They are a UK based company, but I've had absolutely no issues at all with that company. Been really, really good to deal with. They've always pretty much got everything in stock whenever I need it. They have an eBay store, and you can order directly from them. Now I will put a link to Guy's Magnets in the description for you to check out. Other companies are available, of course. I've also used a company called Spider Magnets. They were pretty good, and the only reason I went there is they had a magnet which I couldn't guess on Guy's Magnets at the time. But yeah, just have a look on eBay. That's probably your best bet. You'll be able to, you know, you can find loads of different magnets there. Okay, so what type of magnets do we need? Well, first of all, you need neodymium magnets, also known as neomagnets. Now these are denoted in different strengths by a number, usually starting with an N. So it'd be say N35, N40, and nowadays we have N52. Now when I first started up, I was buying N35, N40 batteries, N42s, and you know, they were pretty good. But the strength of the newer magnets, N52, is really, really good. So it's now quite possible to get quite small magnets and have some real strength to them. But you must get N52 magnets. That's all I buy now. You know, I find those N35 ones just aren't quite strong enough. So N52 magnets is what you need. Okay, so they come in all different sizes. I'm just going to run through some of the sizes that I've used and the most popular ones that I use. I've got some very small 3 by 1/2 millimeter magnets. These are basically really thin, tiny magnets. I used to use these quite a lot. I don't use them so much now, to be fair, but they can be quite useful if you are unable to embed a magnet into a particular area. So let's just take these off one at a time as I go. Next, these little magnets here. These are 1 by 1 millimeter. Pretty useful for getting to very small areas. Next, we have the most popular magnet that I use, and these are 2 by 1 millimeters, and these are perfect for basically embedding into a hole, because the drill bit that you get with your pin vise, which we've previously discussed, is a 2 millimeter drill bit, and that fits most things quite well. So that's probably my most used magnet. Next, I've got some 2 by 2 millimeters, so they're slightly bigger, slightly deeper, which obviously means they're more powerful. Generally, the bigger the magnet, the more power you get, assuming they're all N52s. Obviously, if you have the option to drill a slightly deeper hole and put a bigger magnet in, then that's very useful. My second most popular magnet, 5 by 1 millimeter magnets. So these have quite a nice surface area. They're really good for, let's say, monstrous creatures. So my Tyranids, for example, use these quite a lot. And they're nice and powerful, but they're also flat, which means that they're quite easy to put into awkward areas. So coming away from there, and then I've got these rather massive magnets, and these are really powerful, and I use these on the inside of my wave serpents. So I actually glue these to the wave serpent on the inside, and then I can magnetize stuff through the plastic to the top. It saves me drilling holes in the plastic, and that works really well as well. So that's all of the magnets generally that I use. There are some really tiny magnets that I have used in the past for when I did my Wraith Guard, but I don't have any of those left to show you. But you get the general idea. It's probably a good idea just to get a few different size magnets. But if you were only to get 2, I would suggest 2 by 1 millimeter and 5 by 1 millimeter magnets are probably the most useful magnets. Okay, so we know about magnets, so how are we going to use them? Do I have any tips for you? Okay, so I have one big tip, and that is about the polarity of magnets, because of course the magnets only go together on one side. If you go to the other side, of course, reverse polarities, it doesn't work. And the last thing you want is to embed 2 magnets, one on one side of your model, one on the other side. Then you go to magnetize them on and they don't fit. So you need to make sure you've got a good idea which side the polarity's on. Now there's a few things you can do. I've got my own little thing, and that is I use what I call the magnet topper, which is basically just a piece of plastic. This actually came from a fishing game where you sort of got the fishing rod and you sort of grabbed it, and it's got a magnet there, and there we go. So it goes on one end, and then I know which end has the certain polarity. So when I'm magnetizing on, I don't accidentally glue the wrong ends on. It works well for me. I know other people that use the lollipop. So you get an old lollipop stick and you glue one magnet with one polarity one end, one magnet with the other polarity the other end. Maybe colour code them, and then that makes it easier again just to work out which polarity is which. So that's one little thing you need to watch out for. So I'm talking about gluing magnets in. So how are we going to glue magnets in? Well, for magnets you will need some super glue, which we've obviously previously talked about. Super glue is how you would glue the magnets in. One issue that sometimes you do get is that the super glue, although obviously we know that super glue can sometimes dry very quickly, when we're talking about gluing magnets, where there's quite a bit of pull on a magnet, so you might want to say put a magnet in, you try and put it out and it will come out of the super glue. Well, another good tip is to use, which we've already discussed, green stuff. If you use a tiny piece of green stuff, maybe just here on the magnet with your super glue, and then when you glue it on, not only does the green stuff sort of bond, the super glue bonds and all together, and it sticks a lot quicker basically. So that is something to use, a combination of green stuff and super glue when gluing your magnets in. So that's what we use to glue them in, but how are we going to actually attach them? So obviously one option is just to literally glue them onto the hand. So for example on this model, I don't know how close I can get it and focusing. So for example, I could just glue the magnet onto the end of the hand, but ideally you want to embed the magnet, and that's where the pin vise comes in. So with the pin vise you can drill out a little hole. I actually drilled a 2mm hole out into that arm, and then I used one of the 2x1mm magnets, which as I said is my faithful magnet, and then that was glued inside the actual arm itself. The same with the hand on here. So again, just drilled a little hole out and put the magnet in there. Green stuff, of course, just insert some green stuff into the hole before you actually insert the magnet. If you do glue a hole which is a little bit too deep for the size of the magnet that you can go in, again just fill that hole with some green stuff before you actually put the glue in. So that's how you would actually attach the magnets. But the most common thing which people say to me is, I get the magnets everywhere. They end up on my finger, you know, they end up on the radiator where they ping off and they stick to the radiator. You know, it is quite common. But again, I've got a few little tips and techniques which I use, which I find quite useful. The two reasons why you come into trouble when using magnets is, number one, if you're sticking magnets in using other magnets, in other words you're trying to insert a magnet into a hole and then you're using these magnets to try and get them out, and that causes problems. The other problem is when you're trying to take a magnet off and maybe trying to stick it in just with your finger like this. You've got super glue everywhere, you push it in, you get super glue all on your finger. You know, those are the two issues that people have. And now my solution, I've got the first solution, which is what I used for quite a long time. I've advanced slightly from this, but I'm just going to show you this anyway because it could be quite useful. Is to get your magnet, make sure of course you have the right polarity. Get an old paintbrush, and then on the end I've just put some blue tack, made it into a little point. So what I can do is pick this magnet up with the blue tack. I can then put some super glue on the joint that I'm going to put it onto. I can then push it in using the blue tack. Using the green stuff along with the glue would obviously just keep the magnet into position, like I said earlier, and then you can take this away and it doesn't stick to it. I find that works really well. I've advanced slightly from that in that I would actually use this. Yes, my file. The good thing about this is that the file of course is magnetic, but if you use this section, this is the handle, it's got like this foam like handle. It means that the magnet still magnetizes to it, but where there's foam in between this and the metal, it doesn't stick that much. It just sort of keeps it into place. So what I do is I get the right polarity, pop the magnet onto there, again get the thing that I want to put the magnet onto, tiny bit of green stuff, a bit of super glue, and then I can use this, push it on, and then just either slide it out or just put it away, and then the magnet is in the right position. I find that really, really useful. So if you've got one of these around, then that could potentially be quite a good way. The other way is back to the lollipop stick. Again, it's not something I use, but arguably the lollipop stick that you've got with the two magnets on for the polarity, you could stick your magnet to one of those magnets that's on the actual stick, and again you could potentially just push it into the hole and then slide that lollipop stick away, leaving the magnet in the hole. So there's a lot of things which you can do. Ultimately, I suppose it is just practice. As always, just get stuck in and have a go. You will need to just find your own little techniques that work best for you. As I said, I've got my own little techniques. You know, some may work for you, some may not. So you may discover your own techniques. Well, that's it for this video. I hope that some of that was useful to you. Stick around because we've got more stuff coming, and then eventually I'm going to put all of this, what we've been learning, into one video, and I'm going to hopefully use pretty much all the techniques that I've talked about to make a model. But for now, thanks for watching.